Okay, congruent triangles. It says show that the polygons are congruent by identifying all congruent corresponding parts, then write a congruent statement. So here we see the two triangles. We can say that angle J is congruent to angle T because it has the same amount of arcs. We can say that angle P is congruent to angle V. Angle L is congruent to angle S. In terms of the segments, again, I'm just looking for matching dash marks. Segment JP is congruent to TV. Segment PL is congruent to segment VS. And segment JL is congruent to TS. So now that I know that all the corresponding parts are congruent, I can say that those triangles are congruent. And when I do this, I'm going to say triangle JPL. Remember to put your phone up, Tyler. Thank you. JPL. When I did this, I specifically did the one arc, then two, then three, so that way I could make sure to do that on the second one. Triangle TVS. And then you could always check it as well, just make sure everything matches. L is the same measure as S, or J is the same measure as T, and it works. For number 2, we're not going to write out all of this because I think you guys get the point. We're just going to write the congruent statement for these two triangles. We have triangle DEF, and that is congruent to the bottom one. And I did the 1, then 2 arcs, then 3, so I'm going to do the 1, 2, then 3 here as well. DGF triangle. Okay, and then for 3 and 4, it brings in the algebra, of course. It says that triangle ABC is congruent to FDE. It says find the value of x. For this one, actually finding y makes more sense. For y, we can see that it's 48 degrees. These two angles are the same, so y equals 48 degrees. Y equals 48. And then finding x. So if this is 2x minus y, this one must be 2x minus y as well, because angle A is equal to angle F. Then these 3 angles add to 180. So I'm going to say 108 plus 48 plus 2x minus y equals 180. I know that y is 48, so I'm going to plug that in for y. And then from here, I'll solve for x. 48 minus 48 is just 0, so I'm crossing that out. That's it. Okay, number 5, it has proof. I haven't seen proofs in a minute. I'm going to set it up, statements and reasons. For the statements, we always start with the given. Instead of writing all of this out, I'm going to just draw an arrow. But honestly, this doesn't make any sense without the picture. So it's nice that they give us a picture. If this was on a computer, I would write this down on the scrap paper and mark it up, because that's the only way to visualize what they're saying here. So on this picture, I'm going to mark that AB is congruent to CB, so AB congruent to CB. It says AD is congruent to CD, so these are congruent. It says angle ABD is congruent to CBD. Those are congruent. And ADB is congruent to CDB. Now that I have it marked up, I can see what they're looking for. They want me to prove that these two triangles are congruent. In order to prove that, I need to know that all the corresponding parts are congruent. So I need to know that BD is equal to itself, and then I also need to know that angle A is congruent to angle C. So for step 2, I can say that segment BD is congruent to segment BD based on the reflexive property. And then for 3, I can say that angle A is congruent to angle C based on the third angle theorem. I realized you couldn't see it. There you go. So the third angle theorem said that if you have two angles that are congruent to two angles in the other triangle, then the third angle must be congruent. And then now that we have all of our corresponding parts, we can then say that triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CBD. And that would be corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So that theorem can prove that triangles are congruent. It can also prove that parts of triangles are congruent. Then on the back, we're just going to do 2 problems that come up in the homework. Wait, quickly get it down. Okay. Okay, so we're going to work on 3 and 4. 3 and 4, they jump from triangles to, looks like a trapezoid here. But the same idea applies. If you have congruent polygons, is what they're calling it, then the parts are congruent as well. It says, what is the value of x? Well, x is right here. Angle A is congruent to angle P. So 2x plus 4 must be equal to 100. And then I'm just solving for x. Then for the value of y, here is y. You may be able to just see that those two are going to match up, but if you wanted to be sure or you couldn't tell, CD and RS are the segments that are the same. So 3y minus 3 equals 12, and then you can solve for y. Yeah, right there. That's it. So once you get that down, you can get a laptop, bring it to your seat, and start your homework.